Okay, Parsha Eikev, 5781. So, for this series of classes on the weekly Parsha, we have a few intentions that I would like to first speak about. What are our 4 intentions for these classes? So our first purpose in these classes is to help people always have a powerful, sweet, inspiring, and life-improving insight on the Parsha that they can easily share with any friend or family member during the week and wherever they meet people, right? You go to shul, you always have a nice Torah insight that you can share with somebody, a nice vort, as they say in Yiddish. The second purpose of these classes is to help people always have sweet and important insights and lessons from the Parsha that they can share at the Shabbat table as part of the conversation. You know, these can be fantastic conversation openers at the table. The third purpose of these classes is to help people learn the truly life-changing, life-enhancing, powerful self-improvement secrets of the Torah. Okay? Our intention is also to develop a deeper connection and appreciation for the masters of Kabbalah and Chassidut that we will be sharing Torah from. Okay? So that's the general 4 intentions that we have for these classes. I'm going to repeat them at the beginning of the classes because it's important always to get the intention clear, to set the intention before anything that you do. And that allows for that intention to unfold and to be manifested in whatever it is that you're doing. The kavana is a very important aspect to everything that we do. So today we will discuss 4 powerful lessons from this week's Parsha that, if applied, they can drastically improve our life. First of all, we will explore one of the powerful methods that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov outlines in the Kutei Moharan, a method for sweetening and removing any negative energy from a person's life. And he teaches this lesson through and on the first verse, the first pasuk in this week's Parsha. Next, we will learn a powerful method that the Bashem taught for dissolving fears and anxieties and cultivating a deep, magical state of Yirat Shamayim, awe of Hashem. Yirat Shamayim is a deep, magical state of consciousness. We will also explore an important trick to cultivating this magical state, and we will learn about the benefits of acquiring Yirat Shamayim and increasing our importance of this magical state, our experience of this magical state. Then we will also learn one of the most important elements that cause our blessings to manifest. You know, when you go to a tzaddik and you get a bracha from the tzaddik, a blessing from the tzaddik, what causes certain blessings to manifest and other blessings that seem like nothing happened because of it? When we want to bless somebody, we want to bless a loved one, a friend, or whatever, we want our blessings to manifest. We want them to be effective. We want them to be powerful. We want them to materialize. So how does that happen? So when we bless someone, we want that blessing to manifest. We can use this powerful lesson to empower our blessings to be exponentially more powerful. We can also learn how to apply this lesson, this same lesson, in order to be able to receive more blessings from Hashem. And finally, we will enjoy the holy words of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. He was one of the great disciples of the Maggid of Mezrich. So he's 3rd generation from the Baal Shem Tov, 2nd generation of the Baal Shem Tov. And he was also a good friend of the Alter Rebbe of Chabad. And so he will teach us the powerful method that the Torah prescribes for us to effectively cause desirable, holy messages, positive messages, to penetrate our heart, to influence our subconscious mind, and to cause real change on multiple levels and layers of reality. So these are the 4 things we're going to speak about today, Bezrat Hashem. So let's begin. First of all, let's begin with the first pasuk in this week's Parsha. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם ושמר אדוני אלוהיך לך את הברית ואת החסד אשר נשבע לאבותיך. Hashem says that it will be because you listen to these mitzvot and you fulfill them, that Hashem will keep true to his promises, to the covenant, to the brit, and all the kindness that he promised, that he swore to your forefathers. Okay, that's the beginning of this week's Parsha. V'haya Eikev tishme'un. What's really interesting is what Rashi explains right away on these first few words, because Eikev means, and literally in this context, it means that because of, when you do something, so the effect of that action is this. This is the reward that you will receive. So Eikev means because of. The word Eikev, literally, the actual word Eikev means the ankle of a person. Okay, it's like part of the foot. And the reason why it's used in this context, in this way, is because the foot is always like the end of something. The end of a person is his feet, is the ankle. And so the end result of fulfilling the Torah and the mitzvot is this, that the pasuk tells us, what the Torah tells us. Hashem will keep all of these promises and the kindness and the covenant, the brit that he promised, your swore to your forefathers. So that's what it means when it says Eikev tishmeun. Because the end result of doing this is this reward. But it uses the word Eikev, which means the ankle. And Rashi explains that when we follow the mitzvot that are compared to the ankle, just like the ankle of a person, the foot of the person is the least significant part of a person's body, and it's usually put at the side, right? The head is the main part of a person's body, the heart even, but the ankle is the least significant part of a person's body. When a person takes those mitzvot that people usually think of as insignificant, and a person makes sure that he keeps them as well, so that's specifically, it's about doing that you will receive these tremendous rewards that the Torah outlines for us. So we see that Rashi pays attention to the word Eikev in its literal meaning, even though in this context it doesn't mean that, it means the result of, but the literal meaning is the foot. Okay, and so Rabbi Nachman does the same thing. Not just Rabbi Nachman, we see there throughout the Meforshim, the commentaries, there are many, many, many different commentaries and explanations on this first pasuk of this Parsha that also refer to the word Eikev, giving it the literal meaning of it. And what is the significance of this literal meaning? The ankle of, the end, the foot of, okay? So one of these explanations is Rabbi Nachman. It's in Likutei Moharan, the first part of Likutei Moharan. It's Torah Kuf Samechtet, Torah 169, and begins the Torah with this pasuk: V'haya Eikev tishmeun et hamishpatim ha'elu shmartem v'asitem otam. And Rabbi Nachman gives us a very interesting explanation here that we're going to see is going to also tie into the other things we'll speak about today. Rabbi Nachman tells us like this. He says that when there is a negative energy, negative decree upon a person from above, from Shemayim, there's a heavenly court case against the person, about the person, and they weigh a person's what a person has done, all the value that person is adding to other people's lives, and the mitzvah that a person is doing, and they weigh it next to all of the things that are less than desirable, right? The actions that a person is not to be so proud of. And then there's a decree, there's a judgment energy that is freed. It's kind of like sent. It's an angel of judgment that is sent in order to fulfill the consequences, to cause those consequences that this person has through their actions, their inappropriate actions. There's certain consequences for that. Person puts their hand in fire, then the person is going to get burnt. So when a person creates these negative forces through their sins, a person creates negative forces in the world, so those negative forces are sent to take their part, and they bring consequences on the person. But that doesn't have to manifest. There are many things that we can do to dissolve that decree, to tear up that decree. And the Gemara is full of all the advice the Chachamim give us throughout the generations of how we can dissolve negative energy. How does a person know when there's negative energy? That's also an important question. How do we know when there's a negative energy on a person? The Bashem taught us that whatever is going on above in the spiritual realm, in the high realm, a person can sense through their intuition, through their emotions, through what's going on in consciousness. When a person falls to a state of chaos, and they're not thinking straight, they're not thinking clearly, and they're feeling depressed, and they're feeling unsettled. So these are just signs of something going on above in the spiritual realm, where there's a judgment upon the person, and a person can use that as an opportunity to follow certain advice that the Chachamim give us to dissolve that judgment energy, to unravel and remove that negativity so that it doesn't have a chance to manifest in the physical world. The Bashem taught us many of these eitzot, many of these tips and advice of how to do this. Rabbi Nachman also does, and that's what he does here in this pasuk, and on this parsha, and he gives us the advice of what he calls cheshbon nefesh. This is something that the Balei Musar, the rabbis of the Musar movement, spoke about a lot, but Rabbi Nachman teaches us to do this in a specific way. It's about making self-inquiry, self-assessment of sorts, where a person assesses their actions, their words, their thoughts, the way that they're living their life. It's just important that a person does this in a compassionate way. And what does it mean a person does this in a compassionate way? So we spoke about this in previous shiurim, but I'm just going to summarize in very short, a very simple way of assessing oneself compassionately is that instead of judging ourselves in terms of, well, what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, am I worthy, am I unworthy, am I a good person for doing this, am I a bad person for doing this, what should I be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, I should have done things differently in this way, I should have done things differently in that way, all of those are judgments. And those are not very compassionate judgments, because it implies that I'm a robot or I'm a machine and I need to be a certain way, and if I'm not a certain way, that there's nothing to talk about, then I'm not good enough, I'm wrong, I'm undeserving. And that's not very compassionate. Instead, a compassionate approach to all this would be thinking in terms of values, in terms of, I have a very big value in my life for meaning, for connection to the spiritual, connection to God, connection to the Torah. I have a very big value in my life for harmony and for peace and for order in my life, and for myself to be aligned with my values. And when I lived my life in these ways that I am now, through my assessment, recognizing we're not aligned with my values, we're not aligned with the Torah and the mitzvot, that we're not aligned with what I believe to be really a meaningful life, so then I feel sad. I genuinely feel sad. I feel the sadness of loss, of losing an opportunity, the sadness of not actualizing myself, of not living up to my standards of how I would like to live and how what I believe is important in life, right? And so that is a compassionate approach, because then what I can do is I can mourn that loss. I can mourn the fact that I missed the point. Okay, chet, any chet, the word for sin in the Torah is a word that means missing the target. Okay, and so I can mourn the fact that I missed the target. I wasn't aligned with my goals, with my purpose, with what I believe to be a meaningful life, with my values. And I create the space to feel that need, what it feels like, that need not being met, and then I can move on. And so I'm being compassionate with myself, but at the same time, I am putting myself through a judgment. A compassionate judgment, but it's still a judgment. Rabbi Nachman says that the power of that is that when the judgment energy, the judgment and angels that were sent in order to put the person through the consequences of their actions, when they see that you yourself are keeping yourself in check by a self-assessment, by holding a judgment for yourself, compassionately, right? We want to do it compassionately, like that we don't awaken more judgment. Whatever we do below awakens above in the same way. And so we're compassionate to ourselves. But when they see that you're putting yourself through this judgment, then they let go and they say, well, we don't need two judgment. It's enough that there's one. And if he's doing this himself, then there's no reason for any other judgment. And all the other judgment energy is dissolved. And when it's dissolved, so then the person will feel that as a release, a relief. A person will feel the openness, a freedom inside their body, and they will be able to dance. That's the way Rabbi Nachman describes it. He says the main way of seeing the results of having that negative judgment energy dissolved is that now you'll be able to dance, and the joy and the happiness will spread throughout your whole body, even your feet. And there's a special Kabbalistic meaning to why the feet, but we don't have to really get into that right now. The point is that this is Rabbi Nachman's advice. Rabbi Nachman says that when a person feels a little bit unsettled, a little bit chaos, a little bit depressed, a little bit like there's a judgment energy, a person can get more and more sensitive to what that feels like. And then a person goes through this self-assessment process. Well, what am I doing in my life that is not aligned with my values? How am I not connected to the Torah and the mitzvot in the way I would like to be? And going through that, paying attention to what that is. And just by doing that, holding the judgment for yourself, you will cause all that other judgment energy to just dissolve, and you'll be able to feel the joy even in your feet. That's the way Rabbi Nachman describes it. This is actually, there's a Gemara, there's a medrash that says that din lemata en din lemala. When there's a judgment below, meaning by you, your own judgment, then there is no need for any judgment above, and there is no judgment in the heavenly court on the person. And so this is an important piece of advice from Rabbi Nachman, and he fits it into the pasuk, the first pasuk. He says like this: V'haya, and it shall be. The Gemara and the Medrash, many places teach us that whenever the Torah uses the word v'haya, it's a word that implies joy and happiness. V'haya is always a word that implies joy and happiness. Eikev means the ankle or the feet. So says Rabbi Nachman, V'haya eikev, joy in the feet. That's the way he puts these two words together to mean that what is the formula for being able to cause real joy to spread throughout your whole body, to all the extremities, even to your ankles, even to your feet? What is the formula for that? And read the continuation of the pasuk. Et hamishpatim ha'ele ushmartem va'asitem otam. These judgments, so this literal word mishpatim doesn't mean laws of the Torah, but it means judgment. Mishpat, even in modern Hebrew, when you speak about a case, a court case, it's a mishpat. That's what it's called, right? So when you et hamishpatim ha'ele ushmartem va'asitem otam, when you do judgment, when you have this self-assessment, right? You do the judgment for your own self, then that is what will dissolve any of that negative judgment energy from above, from below, from wherever it may be on the person, and then you will be freed from that. When you are freed from that judgment energy, we'll be able to spread the joy throughout your whole body, even into your ankles. And so that's the chiddush, that's the insight from Rabbi Nachman, beautiful on the first pasuk in this week's Parsha. We can share it with others, we can share it at the Shabbat table, and it's a wonderful, important message for our own self to learn to apply that. Just going inside, reconnecting, and doing that self-assessment process, as we said, compassionately, is extremely powerful advice how to dissolve any negativity and any judgment from upon us. So that's the first thing we wanted to speak about today. Next thing we wanted to speak about today is a very interesting insight from the Baal Shem Tov. In the middle of this week's Parsha, the Torah tells us, Moshe tells Bnei Israel, he says, Ve'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem Elohecha shoel me'imach, ki im le'yira et Hashem. Now, Jewish nation, now to you, the Jews, I say, what is it that Hashem is asking of you? All He's asking from you is to fear Him. All He's asking from you is to fear Him. Okay? And there's a very famous question in the Gemara on this pasuk. The question in the Gemara is, Atu yira milta zutratahi? Is fearing Hashem such a small thing? How is Moshe speaking to us and telling us all Hashem desires from you, as if it's a tiny thing? He doesn't want anything big from you. He's not demanding much from you. He's not asking a lot from you. He's only asking for you to fear Him. The Gemara says fearing Hashem, the Gemara teaches in many places in Shas, is really one of the hardest things to acquire. You know what it means to actually acquire an awe of the greatness of Hashem? This is a being that you don't really see, and yet is always here. Okay, with our physical senses, we can't sense Hashem in everything. We can't sense that our life is dependent on Hashem. We can't sense that everything in the cosmos, everything on earth, in the whole universe is up to Him in each and every moment. All of existence is up to Him. We don't sense that with our physical senses. And yet, Hashem wants us to fear Him, to be in awe of that greatness, That's a very, very lofty level. And yet Moshe calls it ki'im ne'ira. He only wants you to fear him. That's all he wants from you, is only to fear him. Atu yira milta zutrata, he says the Gemara. Is fearing Hashem, is being in awe of Hashem, that magical state of awe, is that really a small thing? It's not a small thing. And the Gemara answers, in legabe Moshe milta zutratahi. For Moshe, it was a small thing. Compared to all the great levels that Moshe reached and acquired, his spiritual levels, and the highest level of prophecy ever was Moshe, for him, being in awe of Hashem's greatness and really fearing the greatness of Hashem, the power of Hashem, was a small thing. But then everyone else asked the question, okay, that's fine. It's good, nice that for Moshe it's a small thing, but Moshe is not speaking to himself here. He's speaking to the whole nation. And for us, it is not a small feat at all. It's a big thing. So why does he speak to the whole nation and say, Ki'im ne'ira? All Hashem wants is that you should fear him. And so the Baal Shem Tov has an interesting answer to this question. The answer the Baal Shem Tov gives like this. He says that, as we know from the Gemara, and as I mentioned, fearing Hashem, that state of awe of the greatness of Hashem, is one of the most powerful states. The Gemara tells us that all the Torah learning that we ever do in our life is all for the purpose of increasing our experience of awe of Hashem. That state that we're speaking about, that's really the purpose of all Torah and mitzvot. Everything that you do is in order to come to a deeper, greater recognition of Hashem's presence, of Hashem's power, to a point where you can feel the awe spreading throughout your whole body, in your heart and throughout your whole body. And when you're able to cultivate that state and to live in that state, well, then you know that you've acquired the purpose of all Torah and mitzvot. And so this is really, really a magical state, because if we see what the Gemara tells us about somebody that has Yirat Shamayim, it's unbelievable the magic that is available, the power that is available to someone that lives in this state. One of the small things, okay, that I'm just going to throw at you here, that the Gemara says about that, is that somebody that has Yirat Shamayim, Dvarav nishma'im, whatever it is that you speak, when you speak to people, your words will penetrate their hearts. Okay, when you speak to somebody and you want to be able to influence a generation, you want to be able to influence people, that your positive words goes into their heart and causes that shift, causes that breakthrough that you're seeking, that deep meaning, that profound breakthrough, that profound shift that you're seeking to have happen in other people, then cultivate a greater state of Yirat Shamayim, of fearing and being in awe of Hashem's greatness. That's what the Gemara says. So that's just one of the small side effects of having Yirat Shamayim. Another side effect, and this is what the Baal Shem Tov points out over here, is that he says like this. He says that if you look at the world and you look at any pain and any suffering, any adversity that is out there, any difficulty that a person can ever experience in this lifetime, in the physical world, it all comes down to judgment energy. That's what the Baal Shem Tov calls it. He said it's all din, it's a judgment energy, meaning that if we were constantly in the experience of Hashem's kindness in a revealed way, then everything would go our way. Everything would be easy. Everything would be painless. Everything would be pleasant. Everything would be effortless. We would have health, wealth, children, family, honor, respect, meaning, celebration of life. All the blessings of life we would have easily and naturally, effortlessly, and automatically. Okay? But whenever there's any lack of that, and I guess most of us have experienced more than just one or two aspects in our lives that are lacking in that kindness, then it's because of judgment energy. And judgment energy is called din. It's called din. It's also called yirah. Another name for it is fear. And that's why we are afraid. We have anxieties. We have fears in our life from all these things that we are hoping would work out a certain way, and we're afraid that they will not work out a certain way. Okay? And that's fear energy. That's judgment energy. It's the same thing. It's synonymous. Din and yirah, it's synonymous. Judgment energy and fear energy is the same. It's the same energy. Rabbi Nachman says, the Baal Shem Tov says here, that when you cultivate an awe of Hashem, a fear of Hashem, as we spoke about, how do you cultivate it? By contemplating the greatness of Hashem, meditating on it. When you meditate it for just a couple of minutes, you get to a certain sense of awe. Just like when you look at, let's say you're by the Grand Canyon or whatever, and you see a big mountain or whatever, and you look at it, you can either look at it superficially, or you can sit for a moment and actually look at it, and actually sense the vastness of it, the greatness of it. When you do that for just a couple of minutes, all of a sudden you feel a sense of awe spread throughout your whole body. So the same thing, this is how you cultivate Yirat Shamayim, fear of Hashem. This is one of the ways, it's by meditating on that greatness, on that, of Hashem. And when you do that, says the Baal Shem Tov, the fear and the awe of Hashem eliminates all the other fears, all the other worries and anxieties that we have. So all the judgment energy, all the things that we are deficient in our lives, that are lacking, that we're hoping for, we're wishing for, we're fearing that we will not get, we're fearing that we will lose, all those things that are difficult for us in our life is really a judgment energy, a fear energy, and by cultivating a fear and awe of Hashem, we eliminate those other fears. And now the Baal Shem Tov explains this pasuk in the Torah in a sweet, beautiful way that answers all the questions. Well, basically, with this explanation, you don't even come to the questions that the Gemara asked on this pasuk. What does the Baal Shem Tov say? Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Am Yisrael. He's telling us, "Ve'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem Elohecha shoel me'imach ki'im neira." And now, fellow Jews, what is Hashem asking of you? Only to fear Him. So the Gemara's assumption, in the way the Gemara understands the meaning of this pasuk, is that Moshe is saying that Hashem is not asking a big thing from you. He's only asking a small thing. The small thing that He's asking from you is to fear Him. And on that assumption, the Gemara asks this question: well, and fearing of Hashem is not a small thing. And even, and then even if you answer for Moshe it was a small thing, but Moshe is speaking to us, and for us it's a big thing. Well, Baal Shem Tov circumvents all of that, all those questions, by explaining the pasuk differently. He says Moshe is not telling us that fearing Hashem is a small thing. When he says ki'im le'yir'ah, only to fear Hashem, he means that when you cultivate a fear and an awe of Hashem, you will only have one fear instead of all the thousands of other fears that you're usually experiencing on a day-to-day, consciously or subconsciously. In our daily life, we have so many things that we're afraid of, so many things that we're worried about, that are taking up space, mental energy, emotional energy, that we're worried about. But to the extent that we will cultivate one fear, all we need to do is to cultivate a real awe of Hashem's greatness, and all these other fears will just dissolve. And so that's what Moshe is saying, that all Hashem is asking from you is to fear one thing, and by fearing that one thing, by fearing Hashem's greatness, His power, by getting into that state of awe, you will eliminate all the other fears. And so that answers the question that the Gemara asks, because he's not saying it's a small thing, he's saying it's one thing versus many. It's not a small thing versus great things. That's the way he explains it. So that was the second point we wanted to speak about here. The next point we wanted to speak about is one of the advice, powerful tips that were given to us by Chachamim to cultivate a fear and an awe of Hashem is through connection to tzaddikim. And this is one of the answers that is given on that question of the Gemara. The Gemara says, well, Moshe is speaking to Bnei Israel, and for Bnei Israel, fear and awe of Hashem is a great thing. So how is he telling us, it's only to fear Hashem? The answer is that this is the meaning of the words of the Gemara. In the Gabi Moshe, for Moshe, with Moshe, or for Moshe, it's a small thing to fear Hashem. And the answer that is explained on those words is that it's coming to tell us that when you are with Moshe, when you include yourself in Moshe, then even the magical state of awe and fear of Hashem will be easy for you, will be a small thing. That's the meaning here. In the Gabe Moshe, Milta Zutratahi, when you are Legabe Moshe, when you are with Moshe, when you connect yourself to the Moshe of the generation, when you connect yourself to the tzaddikim, then it's very easy for you to cultivate that fear and that awe. And finally, we come to the fourth point that we wanted to speak to, and we'll speak about it very briefly. In the words of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. We also wanted to speak about bracha. Bracha. The pasuk in this week's Parsha says, "Va'ahevecha v'rachecha v'yirbecha." Hashem will love you, and He will bless you, and He will multiply you. And the question is, why does the Torah tell us Va'ahevecha? Hashem will love you and He will bless you. Obviously, if He's blessing us, He will love us, right? You don't bless somebody that you hate. So what does it mean that Hashem will love you and He will bless you? And I'm just going to say this insight very, very short. And the answer is that we learn that the power of blessing is always connected to love energy. The ability for a blessing to manifest is dependent on how much love that blessing is coming from. This is actually, once I heard that somebody asked, I think it was the father of Chaim Kanievsky. I think somebody asked the Stipler, asked him, how does a person bless? How do you bless and it will become fulfilled? How does a blessing be fulfilled? Because we know people come to Reb Chaim Kanievsky or the Stipler. People come to these tzaddikim and they ask for blessings and they receive miracles. And so, how do you bless somebody and have that blessing be fulfilled? And he answered, in the same way that you curse somebody. What? What do you mean in the same way that you curse somebody? He said, in the same way when you curse somebody with all your heart. So in the same way when you bless somebody with all your heart. Meaning that the power of the blessing is dependent on that love energy that it's coming from. Okay? And so we see this as well in the bracha of the Kohanim. The bracha of the Kohanim, Asher Kiddishanu b'Kedushato shel Aaron, v'tzivanu levarech et Amo Yisrael be'ava. He commanded us. He made us holy with the holiness of Aaron, and he commanded us to bless Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, with love. Okay, so the bracha is connected to Aaron, even though all the Kohanim were included in this mitzvah. And the answer is because the blessing is only as powerful as the love in the heart of the one that is giving the blessing. And there was nobody that had that characteristic like Aaron. Aaron is known to be Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. He always looked to make sure there was peace and love among people. He always increased the love and the peace among the people, among the nation. And therefore, that's the characteristic of Aaron, is the characteristic of love. And the characteristic of love is what empowers our blessings to be fulfilled, to be manifested. And now we can understand why the Pasuk tells us that Hashem will love you and He will bless you. It's not just that, Hashem definitely loves us if He blesses us. But it's telling us that His blessing, Hashem blessing us, will come from the deepest love of Hashem, from Hashem's greatest level of love. And that type of blessing, we are sure, will be fulfilled. And so I said that in the same way we can learn this to apply not only in how we bless others, but also to be blessed by Hashem's blessings. How do we do that? We know there's a rule that as we are to others, that's how Hashem is to us. Meaning that this universe is a mirror, and the face that we show to the world is the face that we receive back. And the face and we when we show love to Hashem, Hashem will show love back to us. And so when we want to be blessed by Hashem through Hashem's love, and therefore we know that that blessing will be definitely fulfilled, we want to cultivate a greater love for Hashem. And the same way that we cultivate that fear of Hashem, we can cultivate the love of Hashem. It's by contemplating and meditating on all the kindness that Hashem is constantly doing for us and for others, on the sweetness of Hashem, on the compassion of Hashem, and the kindness of Hashem. And when we do that, we feel this love for Hashem, and then we increase the revelation of Hashem's love to us that will generate these blessings that come from the highest place and are definitely fulfilled. And that brings us to the final point that I wanted, the final insight, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. In this week's Parsha, we have part of the Shema Yisrael. We have the V'haya im Shamua. And in the V'haya, in that Parsha, the middle Parsha of the Shema Yisrael, V'haya im Shamua, it says, we say the words of the pasuk, V'samtem et devarai ele al levavchem ve'al nafshechem. You shall put these words up on your heart and on your soul. And the question that the holy Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk asked, he says, it should have said, you should put the words of the Torah, you put these words in your heart. Why upon your heart? Why doesn't it say in your heart? Isn't it more significant that it should be in your heart than on your heart? And so he teaches us something really, really interesting. And this is something that can be applied to so much. It's a life-changing insight, a life-changing chiddush here, because it teaches us so much about what the Torah is doing with all these mitzvot and all these. What is the Torah's prescription for self-improvement, for influencing the subconscious mind? It's incredible. What does he say? He says like this. He says, really, you're right. Yeah, it should have said it's more significant for us to put these words in our heart. just like anything in the Torah. Everything that Hashem wants for us is that change on a deep subconscious level, where we become one with the Torah, we become one with the love and kindness of Hashem in a deep, profound way, where it influences us, it changes us on the inside. It's not superficial. But we are aware that that's not always possible. Okay? Anyone who has any experience in hypnosis or any of these modalities that work with the subconscious mind knows that there are certain requirements in order to get people in a deep state, in order to get ourselves in a deep state, for things to penetrate the heart, to cause certain changes to happen. And that's why sometimes processes are more powerful and more effective than others. And there's certain things that we can do to cause processes to be more effective than in other times. But still, the Torah gives us certain mitzvah to do all the time. And so why are we to say Kriyat Shema twice every day or 4 times every day? And what if we're not in the right space? Okay, there's certain mitzvot that Hashem gives us to do every day, no matter what. What if we're not in the right headspace, in the right heart space? And it's not going to really influence us to that degree. Should we maybe not say Kriyat Shema right now and wait maybe later on in the week when I'm in a right state of mind and I'll be able to really have it penetrate my heart and really get deep into my subconscious and I can meditate on it and all that? But the Torah doesn't tell us that. The Torah tells us, no, say it every day. Why is that? What's the point of all that? And the answer is, he says, that when you put things constantly, you put them on your heart, on top of your heart, meaning that it's not penetrating your heart right now because you're not in that state that your heart is open and it's able to penetrate. But you keep on putting the right things on top of your heart. Then, at the right moment, when your heart opens up, you'll have all the right messages right there and they will seep in. And so that's the purpose here, says Rabbi Nachman of Vitebsk. And this is a really important lesson. In all davening, people say, the point of davening, the whole point of praying to Hashem is to make sure you pray with all your heart, but I'm not really feeling that right now, so I'm not going to pray today. No, the Torah tells us you pray every day. What's the reason? Reason is because we want to constantly put the right messages surround our heart, even if it's just going to layer upon layer on top of the heart. But when you have that moment of opening, you never know when that happens, but when that will happen, all the right messages will seep in and will influence that deep connection that you're seeking. And that's the meaning of the pasuk, V'samtem et dvarai ele al levavchem ve'al nefshechem. Put these words upon your heart, upon your soul, so that when your soul opens up, when your heart opens up, the right messages will come in and cause the influence, cause the effect that you're seeking, the effect that you're looking for. This is also the power of affirmations, right? Affirmations, you're not always in a state that it really influences your heart, but if you are constantly surrounding yourself with the right messages, then when your heart opens up, those right messages will seep in. And so these are the 4 points that we spoke about today. We spoke about the advice of Rabbi Nachman, how self-assessment, a compassionate self-assessment, eliminates all judgment energy from a person and allows us the freedom to really feel joy throughout our whole body and really deep in all the parts of our body, even in our ankles, even in our feet. And we saw what Bashem teaches us about how that magical state of awe and fear of Hashem eliminates all adversity, all difficulties, all judgment energy, all fears and anxieties. We also spoke about how as we connect ourselves to the tzaddik, all we need is an intention. As we mentioned, the Baal Shem Tov, think, okay, I'm learning an insight from the Baal Shem Tov. I'm intending to connect myself to his soul. The soul of the tzaddik is in his words. As I say words from Rabbi Nachman, I'm intending to connect to him. When we connect ourselves to the tzaddikim of the generation or the past generations, then that magical state of awe becomes easy. We spoke about also the power of blessings is when it comes from heart, when it comes from love. And that's how we can empower our blessings for others, our blessings for ourselves, and we can merit the blessings of Hashem from that love when we cultivate a greater, deeper love of Hashem. And Hashem's love will be showered upon us. We will experience that love with all the blessings that come with it. And we spoke about the significance and the importance of surrounding our heart with the right messages, saying the Kriyat Shema every day, even if we don't feel it, learning Torah every day, even if we don't feel it. I'm not in the mood to learn right now. I can't really connect to it. Well, keep a certain amount of Torah that you learn every day, no matter what, even if you're not connecting to it. And eventually, when your heart opens up, all of that Torah will seep in, and it will cause the desired effect, exponentially greater, even more effectively than you could have ever imagined. And so with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.